Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of the ITSM Crowd. This is the second ITSM Crowd in 24 hours, talking about the subject of do we still need the IT in IT service management, ITSM. And we had a really lively chat this morning in the UK, 9 a.m. UK time, with some of our Australian friends and New Zealand friends. And then now we've got some of our mentors from other far-flung locations. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask everyone to introduce themselves. So working from left to right on my screen, Ivor, if you could kick us off, please.
Yeah, hi. Hello, everybody. Ivor McFarlane. I'm a freelance trainer and consultant these days, and been around in the business for about 372 years.
Thank you very much. Nick?
Hi everyone, my name is Nicola Fredriksson. I used to live in Sweden. Now I live in Brazil these days. I work as a freelance trainer and consultant in IT service management.
Thank you very much. And Randy?
Randy Steinberg. I'm with a company called Concurrency here in the United States, and have been in IT service management for really well over 25 plus years in various forms, and just work with companies around the world helping with their various service management issues and implementations.
Fabulous, thank you. And Suresh?
Hi everyone, thanks Claire. My name is Suresh GP. I'm the Managing Director of Top Solutions based out of Bangalore, India, and we have an office in Singapore. I'm quite a regular person in the ITSM crowd. I enjoy this because there's a lot of useful, scintillating discussions as a capsule in 30 minutes time. I'm looking forward to how IT is moving away from service management or the other way around. In the end of 30 minutes. Thanks, guys.
Fantastic, thank you, and thank you for being with us at 1 o'clock in the morning your time as well. We do appreciate your dedication. My name's Claire Agutter. I'm the lead tutor of ITSM Zone, and I'll be hosting today's chat. We will be watching the hashtag ITSM Crowd on Twitter, so if there's any questions that you have while you're watching and you'd like us to debate them live, then just put them up on Twitter, use the hashtag ITSM Crowd, and the panel will pick them up and we will talk about them during today's episode. So really the first thing to do here, and this is what we did in our earlier episode as well, is just try and put some context around this conversation and why this is a relevant question. So Ivor, if you could kick us off maybe, why are we asking about if we still need the IT in IT service management?
Well, it's interesting because before I mentioned that, my original background was I've actually been in service management longer than I've been in IT service management. I came into IT services from a service background, warehousing and supply. So I've never actually seen why we put IT in there in the first place. What's happened is that because IT goes so quickly, the process of service management in IT became, I think, so important that it was the protection against things going wrong. So it's grown up taking processes way more seriously than the rest of service management. But the whole service management industry has been out there for years and years, ticking along nicely. Now the whole world is computerized. Maybe the rest of service management industry is using the IT service management practices. So I think there's a lot of potential for us with our service management skills to get out there and get involved in other areas of service management again, and the wheel's gone full circle. So it's something we talked about when we were doing the ITIL V3 refresh. I remember discussing one of the pre-planning workshops of whether we should take the IT out of ITIL. We just ended up with ill at that point, which sounded a little bit weak and a little bit silly. But it's always been clear that there's general service management practices behind that. So I don't see the need in a way for a big debate, but I've always been in the minority because people think the IT bit's important.
So for the rest of the panel then, you're all working in different countries, different service management geographies. What are you finding? Is this a discussion that you're having in America, Randy?
I mean, I look at it as, this is the biggest maximum I can think of, which is that there is no value in the IT organization until the point of service is delivered. And I think IT as a discipline will still be there. My view is that the IT should stay in there. And the reason for that is that there is a need for technology management and to manage that in the context of a service being delivered. And I still see a long way, especially at many clients here in the United States, that still have a very long way to go to kind of get their technology in line from a service perspective. And I think the understanding of the disciplines and how service management, and I agree with Ivor, it's been around for quite a while, but I think the discipline of how do I apply all that to the IT technologies and the things that you're working with, I still think that needs to be there for the foreseeable future, just and more so than ever, given some of the most recent directions that IT is going in. There's a lot of forces out there right now that are pushing IT in the form of DevOps or Agile or Lean IT or other technologies, containerization. And these are all great things that are coming on, but without a foundation to link all of that stuff into, which to me is service management. A lot of that stuff is just going to spin out of control, and it's just going to be very chaotic. At least that's my view at this point.
And Suresh, what are you seeing in your geography?
So I think one of the reasons that if you would like to, sometimes what happens is when you go to trainings and do ITIL trainings to non-IT service providers, you get a fair amount of degree of understanding how this has been applied into the context of non-IT world. For example, I was in Nigeria last week, and I was doing a ITSM workshop for oil and gas companies. Now, pretty much if you look at the way they work, still all context of what you talk about in IT service management is still applicable to them, but the way that they apply it is it's a little different. So one of the challenges we have as IT is not being exposed to a non-IT scenario. The moment you get exposed to a non-IT scenario, you would be able to perfectly fit in the context to the situation. I think you learn a lot from there. So I think, as Ivor and Randy mentioned, it's a question of really it's a no-brainer. We have to apply it, but unfortunately, we have been sold out to the idea of clinging on to IT for a long period of time that we don't feel comfortable moving out of IT. Otherwise, it's the same game. And as than ever, there are a lot of non-IT sectors that are embracing service management to a much greater extent. We have a lot to learn from them as well.
Definitely. And Nick, what's your view on this?
Sorry. I've always been a fan of, doing things together with business. And we always start off with things, business and IT. So I always felt like there's a very important link missing. And when you talk about services and you have a service organization that is actually not focused on the IT production, then I think you're moving in that direction. For example, when we talk about these agile things, which I'm studying now with great passion, by the way, I kind of like the idea on the functionality, on the user stories as they talk about in Scrum, for example, to really focus on what we want to do with the services instead of having this IT focus. IT means focusing less on IT. Means that we focus on what we want to do with things, and then add the layers. You have technology, you have application, information, you have a lot of things. But we tend to focus on the tech stuff, and especially in my market here in Brazil, step back even and getting even more focused on technology. And technology is going to save you, and it's not, because it's just an extension of your arm. You're going to hit it in your head. It's not going to do any good. So I do think that you have to start with, and you work yourself down, guys.
One thing that occurred to me thinking about the IT and IT service management is, I think IT service management is quite often seen as an operations thing. It's the support function. So you've got things like DevOps and Agile kind of coming from the dev side, and IT service management is the operations side that we're talking to. So I wonder if perhaps if we drop the IT and focus on service management, that there's a chance to maybe see IT service management as more than operations. I don't know what you think about that. Yeah.
Well, can I jump in on that one? Because I think something you said and Randy said really go together importantly here, because I think what we've got is a need for service management, and what we've got is a need for IT service management, which is one aspect of that. And it's the integrating elements together that's important. I do believe that you're right about DevOps having been driven by the development side of things. It always sounded to me, I remember writing somewhere, that it was, the way it was expressed always sounded like it was so obvious that it was a vote for motherhood and apple pie. But I suspected sometimes it was being promoted by the Apple marketing board. We're now getting that broader picture, and we're seeing that service management is wider than operations, and therefore hopefully we're seeing that IT service management is wider than IT operations. I think Randy said something about the technology difference, and it's interesting. My nearly son-in-law is an engineer, and you talked about what they do, and a lot of the time what they're doing is actually technology service management. It's just not information technology service management. So there's an awful lot out there, and the biggest thing that appeals to me about this seeing broader than IT is that we've got so much to learn and to teach in both directions. We've got a massive amount of good ideas that we can learn from the way service management has been going in various industries over the years. And because IT is getting into all those other industries, we've also got an amazing amount to teach them as well. What we've got wrong in IT service management over the last 25 to 30 years. And there's not a shortage of things we've got wrong in IT service management over the last 25 years. So there is such an opportunity for synergy and support in both directions, it seems to me. If we can just see that there is ITSM and there's SM and work out how they all fit together.
How would you define service management then, if we take away the IT?
I mean, to me, if you service management is about providing value in the form of something where you're taking, I don't want to say raw materials, but you're taking various instances of things that are being produced, and you're merging and creating those together to create form of value to the end user or business, and you're abstracting or hiding away all the complexities of what it takes to provide that value. So the always example I use is business wants to have email service so that they can send and receive messages and do calendaring and messaging and all that. They don't need to be involved in the details around, well, how do I manage the exchange servers and the network and performance and capacity and all that. The service is essentially a layer that kind of hides and abstracts all that away from the rest of the business. So to me, the value is focusing, and I think, as was stated earlier, we're starting from what is it we're really trying to provide in the form of a service to the end user, and then taking all those elements that go underneath that and kind of combining them together and abstracting that away, all those complexities from the rest of the, so that the user or the customer doesn't need to see that.
Yeah. Now, I think that's exactly right. And just say, the first time I had to define service, the end result was almost exactly the same, but we were talking about warehousing and distribution, and our customers just got the goods they needed when they required them without having to worry about trucks and lorries and warehousing and forklift trucks and how many they ordered and all those kind of things. So exactly the same definition that Randy's given works perfectly for the IT service. It works just as neatly for the warehousing and distribution service. I think that makes it a pretty stable definition in my view, I think.
I mean, in my opinion, go ahead.
Sorry, in my opinion, I'm just looking at a different perspective. Be it a financial industry or a manufacturing industry, they've been running this shop for a quite long time. I mean, at the end of the day, they want to make more business, which means we need to have more happy, satisfied customers. So if you need to have happy, satisfied customers, you need to make sure that it's being delivering value. So one of the things is service by itself has been there in all different industries, right? I mean, it's just not unique to IT. So the only thing that we have had is to trying to define a definition of a service for sometimes like construction, manufacturing, finance. It doesn't matter. They don't go by definitions. They just go by the results. So you talk about the number of customers they've acquired, the business that have grown, the top line, the bottom line, that's it. So in my humble opinion, IT has been so much intertwined with terminologies and acronyms that we should just go away from this world of defining things to showing results. And then once you start showing results, then everything falls in place. So I would want to be the devil's advocate here, is to just go there that the customer is happy. And as long as you make him happy, you have delivered service that is worthwhile. Just be upfront on that part.
I like that, yeah, and I think we do get a bit swept away, particularly in IT, with new trends and new buzzwords, and you are quite right, Suresh. Ultimately, what matters is that the customer is happy, and how we deliver that or what methods we use should be transparent to them. So I have heard people start talking about enterprise service management. Is that something that you've heard people talking about?
I haven't heard that, at least here, at least that particular term there, although I agree there needs to be that function within an organization.
So it's been quite popular here, at least Randy and team here. I mean, we have been using this term called enterprise service management for a long period of time across Asia Pacific, primarily from the way this outsourcing organizations have actually taken place. So a lot of outsourcing managed service providers have enterprise service management as a kind of a core offering to make sure people get that stuff. So it involves people, process, tools, and the entire architecture and stuff like that. So it's a kind of a bigger gamut as far as just looking at service management as a transaction oriented of incident problem change or something like that. So I would say enterprise service management is is a bigger dimension because it's got a much more intertwined cross-functional collaboration across diversified teams to deliver holistic value. So that's pretty much from a scale perspective. Whereas the element undermining the service management still remains the same. It's just a kind of a glorified way of looking at service management into an enterprise space.
What about in Brazil, Nick? People talking about enterprise service management.
Well, I would like to start a bit earlier. I mean, already like 10 years ago, I started to sneak in services to the service desk that wasn't actually fulfilled by the IT organization. Getting, new printer cartridges or, paper and pencils and stuff, because they were, supplied by some people that were located in the IT department, but they were not actually part of the IT organization. There were people, going out buying software. They could easily, also buy other stuff. So in small organizations, I think enterprise service management makes a lot of sense. And in the big ones as well, because I mean, after all, you need a service that, are your, order receivers. What you need? Oh, I need new pencils. I need a computer. I need a CRM service. I mean, whatever, kind of service I need from the organization, there should be one single point of contact, as we say to IT. And now I think it becomes, because you can see that the processes, fulfillment works perfectly with any kind of service. Get a new set of pencils, or refresh your papers, or change the light bulb in my office. I think that's I think in a big organization or large buildings,
I think that's something I remember from ITIL version 2, talked about the service desk being able to do other things and do facilities management and things. I'm not, did that make it into version 3, Ivor? Do you know?
It started, actually, I'll tell you where it first appeared, and I confessed I know this because I wrote it. It first appeared in the ITIL book, ITIL version 1 book called ITIL in Small IT Units.
Oh, okay.
Which was my book. I'm very proud of that book, and it's linked through into versions 2 and 3. They changed the name to Small Scale Implementation, I think. But the idea came in there that in a small organization, if you haven't got enough work to justify a full-time IT help desk, as we called it in those days, then one way of adapting that is to, instead of have a part-time IT help desk, have a full-time help desk. So yeah, it's been around since 1995 in that respect, that term. It seems to me that the word enterprise in there is useful for clarification, but strictly speaking, unnecessary. You could just say service management, but maybe that's why it turns up in some parts of the world that are happy with reinforcement and not in other parts of the world that see it as an unnecessary word. But I think the concept is probably there in a lot of organizations. And it's coming. I did some work with, in that respect, Melbourne Airport was a good example, who started merging their help desk because they were finding that it was impossible to know whether it was an IT fault or another technology fault.
Oh, okay.
The example they were giving was the departures board. When it stopped working, it could have been a physical fault in the board. It could have been a fault in a computer that was generating the information for it. It could have been a combination or something in between. So they were losing time by people having to try and guess what was wrong first, and they brought a single help desk in. And there's a nice report, it's a white paper out there that actually comes out with demonstrable cost savings at the end of it.
Which is always good to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do we think, based on everything that we've learned applying service management within IT, do we have something useful that we could teach other parts of the business, or are they using their own versions of things like ITIL? Suresh, do you think we could apply service management processes in other bits of the business?
So I think there's a lot of things to take it over to the business. To start with, I will start with the service portfolio management. I will look at it from a perspective of business, because business wants to make sure that they make the right investments, understand the demand of the market, as well as deliver value, right? So first of all, they need to have something comprehensive like a service portfolio management, which again will drive into a way of looking at your project management, program management part of it, and then the agile way of doing it. So, and in fact, we are trying to actually revamp service management, embracing towards agile DevOps part of it. So, partly one way is to look at we offering something to the business, but in another way, we as service management professionals will also have to step up and say how we can add value in terms of being agile enough, in terms of our own backlog, basically our call volumes, priority one tickets, using our own Kanban boards to make sure our ability to resolve incidents as quickly as possible, but also long-term perspective of working with cross-functional teams and having been self-organized, helping the dev team to do it better. So I think it's a two-way process. One, we give something back to the business in terms of what we think is truly beneficial from service management perspective, but also have our eyes and ears open, because we can learn a lot from the dev folks. We were really agile in nature, so we can actually step out the way we manage our existing incident logs and stuff like that. So I think it's a both way process of just looking at ourselves giving everything back.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. And certainly recently, I think in IT we have been better at taking things from the business. So things like lean, agile, didn't originate in IT. I've got a friend who runs a factory who makes fiberglass molds, and he keeps inviting me to come and see how they apply lean, because waste to them is directly attributable to the bottom line, and every broken mold that they leave outside in the skip takes money off their profits. So yeah, I think there is maybe things within IT that we can give to the business, but perhaps we should continue kind of pinching bits from them as well. Business service management is another term that I've seen people talking about, replacing the IT. Is that gaining ground in your geographies?
I mean, I see that here in some forms. I don't see it taking over IT service management. It seems to be almost kind of like operating in parallel with that. One of the things I'd like to try to get in as we get towards the end of this is, if you look at the greatest things that have happened in IT, the greatest things and the greatest failures, it all comes back to service. And I'd like to see that. I'll use Apple as a great example. When Apple started to come out of their doldrums with the iPod, it wasn't the technology, it wasn't the fact that they had a device that could play music. It was the entire service that they're providing, where you can now, instead of buying music albums, you can buy one song at a time. You can do it for 99 cents, and we made it really easy for you to make that happen. And you can put your own records and your own playlists and things together. It was the service side of that that differentiated them and made them sell that. When they came out with the iPhone, there were plenty of companies that had phones with small handheld devices, but the focus on the user experience and the fact that there are other services I could add to my phone, such as checking stock quotes and looking at weather and instant messaging other people and all kinds of stuff, that they put that together as a user experience and as a service, and that's what differentiated and made that take off. And I'll use one more example from Apple, which is on the fence right now, which is the Iwatch, which to me is an example of technology focus instead of service focus, because I was able to create and reproduce successful iPhone-like functions on a small watch, and that seems kind of neat to people. However, because I think they didn't look at the service in the market for that, you see it kind of a very uneven result as a result of that. And I think the jury's out as to whether that's ultimately going to succeed. I think other things outside of Apple, such as Google Glass, are other examples where a technology focus took over, and the actual service and the value that people would get from that may not succeed. So I think, again, to me, the service piece is extremely important. And even from an IT standpoint, when you look at the greatest things that have happened out of IT in terms of technologies and events, there's technology behind it, but it was really the service piece that people latched onto, and that they kind of went there. The technology itself was just simply an enabler.
I think that's absolutely right, all the way from the PC, as you say, through to the iPhone. You can spot those real differentiators.
Yeah, and
I think the automation is a critical part of the whole success, right? I mean, it is going to be a game changer. So there's no doubt about technology or automation being a vital part of any service delivery. But the key element that we need to be careful is, it's just not about your processes that actually makes an impact. Traditionally, we've been focusing on IT. I would always say IT is a pampered child, because it tries to crave for attention. But the other industries have been doing phenomenally well with minimum resources. So I think the game is to look at how do we expedite the way of working and looking at lean, agile service management in the context of the entire end-to-end value chain, as opposed to just looking at just service as a means to an end. So I think the way we are going to shape the next era, it's just not about just focusing on services, but then how the end-to-end value chain is actually operating to the order that we would want it to be functional. So we need to get everybody onto the board, change the gears quickly and appropriately, so that everybody is into the bandwagon. So I think we need to get that dealt well, as opposed to just looking at just from a service, because it's more than the service as well. So it requires a lot of moving parts very quickly in a nimble, agile fashion to make it work, because by the time you actually deliver it, the customer would have actually gone away from the place. So it's going to be such dicey wicket there. So we need to be a little more cautious to make this work.
I absolutely agree. And I think we're coming to the end of our time now, but I do think IT service management needs to evolve to survive, because if it doesn't get agile, it is just going to be seen as the block that's stopping this automation, this continuous delivery. So it is an interesting time for IT service management. So just to finish us off then, yes or no answers. Either do we drop the IT and ITSM?
Yes and no. I think we need to drop the IT and understand service management. We also need to understand how IT service management fits into that bigger picture. So I don't think it's as simple as dropping it. I think it's actually about seeing that the two need to exist and the synergies and interfaces between them.
Thank you very much. Nick? Do we need
I would say yes, embed it. Because it needs to be in there, but it shouldn't be like IT service management. And IT is, paraphrased in there. We need it, but it shouldn't be the first thing you see.
Thank you. Randy, yes or no?
I think I could see there could be service management, and then to me there will always be an IT service management, at least as a sub-discipline underneath service management in general, and I could see it working that way, but I don't think it goes away.
Thank you. And Suresh?
If you want to answer this question as a consultant, I would say yes. If you want to say as a practitioner, I would say no. So it's up to you where you want to make that. But I think, as Randy mentioned, you cannot just move away from IT, because it's going to be an integral part of your daily sustenance. So though we would like to focus on the SM as being the mother, the IT has to be somewhere, at least in the periphery, to make this work. So though from the front end, it's going to be service management, IT is going to be an integral part of working it to take giant strides. So it's going to be work together as well.
So I think what we actually have there is it's a classic ITIL answer, which is it depends. it's the universal ITIL answer. Our next episode of the ITSM Crowd is next week. We've got a conference preview from IT in the Park, which is a conference which is happening in Edinburgh at the end of the month. We're going to have a couple of presenters there, Steve Morgan and William Hooper, who are going to be talking to us about SIAM. And then our November episode of the ITSM Crowd is going to be about how we equip people for a career in IT. So what do people need at the very, very start of the career? So it just remains now for me to say thank you very much to the panel. Thank you, Ivor, Nick, Randy and Suresh. Really appreciate your time. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your evening. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Right, thank you very much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.